First I was curious what this building was. It looks octagonal. I think a travertine stone. And then I noticed the doors. The doors of Herberti. I think those were the second set of doors that were moved in there, and the first set that was originally in there moved over here. These are now copies. I believe the originals are in museums. And then I walked around the corner slightly and looked up and to my left, and all I could say was God. And for an agnostic, that's an incredible admission. But this is spectacularly beautiful. It is the Duomo. And specifically Brunelleschi's Duomo. What a beautiful church. And as I gaze at this for the first time in wonder, I wonder if the people walking by here are like those of us who live in Jackson Hole and become rather blasé and take the Tetons pretty much for granted after a while, almost having to force ourselves to take a look at it or at them. I wonder if the same is true here. Look at the detail. I'll start to focus on what will be the beginning of far more of this church than you will ever want to see. Just look at the detail in these portals. As I continue to look at this, I'm caught by the realization that my brain is almost compelled to rise, continually rise in its view through my eyes upward. Somehow in the design, it's forcing my eyes always upward. There's so much to take in that I can't do it, but one of the things I notice is the ethereal, spindly almost look of these rope-turned pillars, if you will, that stand out away from the church by themselves. Imagine the skill to create, to carve out just that one element alone. We'll take one shot at the uplifting look here. And you'll see how this facade, just this one element, all ties together, all, perhaps Bill will say, with its lines forcing the eye up. Notice the arches, if you will, the large one, then the smaller one, moving you up through the sculpted figures of relief, up to the cap, architectural cap. I forget what the Romans would have called this. I think this is called a tympanium. But we'll look a little bit closer at each of these details just for the fun of it. And because the camera can. The person holding the book, I think, is Luke. The book was always a symbol of the apostles having written one of the books of the Bible. So all four apostles normally will have that. Looking at these, again, turned pillars, for lack of a better term, notice the complexity of them. To my left a little ways down, there's some scaffolding. It's enclosed perhaps to restore the luster of the exterior, inevitably damaged a bit, or at least discolored by the grime of a big city. And these side fixtures, if you will, I think are called tribunes, and I think are designed almost like flying buttresses to give support ultimately to this huge dome, but in themselves would, in many parts of the world, stand out as equal to a significant cathedral. I'm purposely positioning myself here to slowly raise the camera all the way to the top of what I think is the dome. And I'm so dwarfed by it all, I'm not sure of dimensions anymore. And I'm curious about these square blocks that stick out, what function they form in Brunelleschi's design. The part below that, where this large window portal is, I think is referred to as the drum. But notice even here there's also a secondary tribune, I believe, if that's what these are called. Some of these panels are nice and clean even as they stand, and others you can see are heavily stained and dirty and will benefit from restoration. Here's what I think are relatively newly carved doors, but still incredibly impressive if in fact they're new. Impressive more so if they're old. A couple more old fittings on a building right across the street, and I assume perhaps old but not ancient form of gate to close off this business. Being the dilettante observer of the world rather than participant anymore as I am, I'm intrigued as hell at the fittings and the architectural debris that you see. And I say that with all due respect. Notice these devices look like they're designed to hold large candles or lamps or lanterns, and maybe they were. And the insignias. Here a modern electrician man, perhaps a telephone man, splicing in what might have been a break in the line. Just like my interest in archaeology, I have no interest in sitting in a deep, dirty, dusty, hot hole, sifting through sand for some scraps of ancient bones. I'd rather read the National Geographic article or go to the museum. And the same thing with architecture. I don't want to be an architect, but I love coming and looking at all of the detritus of hundreds of years of architectural, perhaps to hold a flag or some kind of device. Same thing here. This looks like a tiny, intimate little shop dealing with beautiful little bits of calligraphy and fine artist drawings, music. Whether this is original or not, I don't know. Tools of calligraphy. A casual gaze down almost any street is intriguing, and at the very end, of course, there seems to be some monument of something that I'll hopefully discover in the next week or so I'm here. Just another view that's kind of captured my attention just because of the complexity of what I'm seeing. I'm guessing that that element on the left, but just at the bottom of the dome, at one of its spines, not spines, but supports, if you will. Look on the right side, it's missing, and perhaps over time all of that facade has just fallen away. Now I'm at the rear or the east end of any cathedral. Again, just noticing another side street that goes off and a tower at the end of that. Another tourist option being explained to the next group by her guide, or by the guide. Now either the sun is making Giotto's tower and that side of the south side of the cathedral look fresh and bright, or it's been restored first. I'm curious what that pulpit light fixture is for. I mean, it's rather large, to say the least. So far, my impression of Florence includes beautiful women. I don't know if it's just the color of the rich color of their skin or the elegant clothes that most seem to wear on a daily basis or not. But now back to architecture. What an impressive tower. The front of this building opposite the south wall of the cathedral has on the right a statue of my newfound idol, Brunelleschi. Brunelleschi, the designer of the dome, and perhaps equally important, the first person in 1,000 years after the decline of Rome to have rediscovered and defined mathematically the rules of perspective. And this is a statue to him. Of course, more than poignant that he's looking up at his dome. To we laymen, certainly one of the great marvels of a sculptor of this caliber is the ability to make something as pliable, if you will, as material, like the material on his left leg, and the coat, or whatever it is that he's wearing, out of stone. And to somehow envision this in your mind and see it within a block of rock and whittle away until you've got it. I'm purposely spending the morning just wandering the streets en route to Uffizi Museum or Art Gallery. So I'm not going inside the cathedral. But notice the wings that are of green color. Perhaps they're bronze, if bronze in fact weathers and corrodes to green like copper does. I don't know. To the knowledgeable, each of these characters is a real person. Soon at least this walk area, pedestrian area around the Duomo will be filled with other artists plying their wares. I could spend hours documenting all of what's recorded here, and that would be foolish because I don't know what it is and you don't care either. Is this Copernicus? And there Opposite the entrance to the west entrance to any cathedral is the baptistry. These were always juxtapositioned opposite each other, since you had to be baptized first before, in theory, you could enter, if not the church, certainly heaven. This is the front of the cathedral, if you will. I'm just going to pan down through here, Brunelleschi's dome in the back through this front. And I'm going to spend no time looking closely at the exterior of this building or of the baptistry next door, or specifically of Ghiberti's doors. These are those. I'm working my way south to the Uffizi.